Okay, welcome to our On Target Teletraining series. I'm Andrea Kern, the founder of Big Bark, your online source for everything big dog. We are excited to have holistic dog trainer Alicia Evans joining us. Her training methods are focused on healthy and natural ways to train our big dogs. Tonight we are discussing establishing clear boundaries. So let's get started. Alicia, how are you?
I am good. Establishing a lot of clear boundaries with people and their dogs today.
Fantastic. So first, can you just quickly tell us what are clear boundaries for dogs?
Sure. Clear boundaries are something that's going to get your dog to pay attention to you, to let them know that you said what you meant and you meant what you said. And they're going to be something that basically, when you give a clear boundary, it actually allows the dog to make a different choice. So, if a dog was walking and pulling you, one of the ways you can give them a clear boundary is through your training tools. So if your dog is walking and going to pull you, a clear boundary is not your dog pulling you and you keep walking with your dog. A clear boundary would actually be, okay, if you pull, I'm going to stop. It's very, very clear. Like the dog, it's kind of like the zone of no pass. The dog cannot go forward unless they make a different choice. So clear boundaries are absolutely necessary. I mean, you'll see it all the time in the animal world. You have two dogs together, and one dog decides, the other dog is doing something that pisses it off. And then the one dog just decides to throw in a really fast correction to say, clear boundary, do not cross that line.
Okay.
So clear boundary is really something that makes the dog kind of go, okay, I'm going to back off my energy. I get it.
All right. So what happens when dogs don't have clear boundaries?
Well, that's the case when you go to, let's say, the dog park, and your dog's good, and they're playing, and they're having fun. And then all of a sudden, a maniac dog comes in that's like running around, getting everybody crazy, and, it's like bumping into other dogs, and it's kind of like almost Hong Kong Fooing other dogs. It just like jumps sideways and bounces off other dogs. And it basically sets everybody up into a heightened state where there's way more of a potential for a fight. That's really like a dog that does not have a clear boundary. The issue is that when a dog doesn't have a clear boundary, because the human is not setting a clear boundary, another dog, which understands dog language and dog psychology more clearly, will probably take the initiative to actually correct that dog and give it a clear boundary. So it might look like a fight to us, except the dog that's doing the correcting and giving the clear boundary is the one that's actually helping that other dog to learn to behave better. So I had an incident with that today with a client of mine's dog who he's a great dog, but he's nervous, So he either goes from nervous, anxious, scared, or he gets into over the top, exuberant, excited, or starts growling. And we took him out for a walk today with one of my dogs, and she was really sniffing him out, seeing whether, he was balanced or not balanced. She really realized that his behaviors were actually going to start a fight. So they started walking, and then he wanted to play with her a little bit, so he threw a paw on her. And she was okay. She's like, okay, I'll throw a paw back on you. And they did that, and then he started growling, and then he tried to start taking the dominant position because his boundaries are not clear that she's actually the dominant one. And she kind of went off on him a little bit, and she just said, absolutely not. And there was no blood, no nothing. It was just, kind of like people have a really quick passing argument. And all of a sudden, he completely changed his behaviors in terms of getting more balanced because he started to become more aware of who was around him, what the energy actually was, not what he thought it was in his imbalanced state. And he became much more humble and just very easy for the rest of the walk. So clear boundaries are really, really important. And especially for big dogs, because when these guys are puppies, they're so cute, they're so mushy, they're so yummy, but they're going to get really big. And when they're really big, it's really hard sometimes to get a big dog back into balance. They've got so much energy coupled with so much weight over you as a human that it just makes sense to train them in the way that another dog would train them, so they really understand their size and space and time, because clear boundaries actually makes for a much more respectful and much easier dog to be with.
Okay, so why are these boundaries so important for us as humans also?
Well, what happens with us humans, and we can see it all the time in our human society, okay? Without clear boundaries, we've kind of become this society that's just like, more, more, more. Let's get more extreme. Let's do more stuff. And it's like, wait a minute here. Where's the balance in the middle of calm, relaxed, less stressed humans than where we're at today? We're kind of like all over the place with all of these extremes. Now, in human society, because the society is so big, sometimes it takes a little while to see how out of balance certain things and certain behaviors are and become. But when you take it down to looking at dogs in a dog pack, it's really, really easy to see that dogs will correct themselves in ways that humans are almost like afraid of. Like if you've ever seen a mom dog correct her puppies, it's very clear, it's very concise, and she really doesn't care whether or not her puppy likes her. She cares about making sure that the entire pack is safe. So what happens is we as humans, because we don't have those same safe, clear boundaries, because we've kind of become so politically correct, we don't have places where something's like, hey, stop and don't cross that line. Like, you need to evaluate what you're doing before you take another step forward, because you don't realize the damage that you could be doing. So when a human is not in balance and does not have clear boundaries, the dog starts to pick up the same thing. So now you're taking a dog's psychology that actually understands very well clear boundaries, and you're throwing it off balance. And then we kind of wonder, why are our dogs getting into more fights? If our dogs, a dog knows one of two things. Either you're in charge or the dog's in charge. Somebody in that relationship has got to be in charge, because that's the way the dog mind functions. So when the human is not setting clear boundaries with the dog then starts to kind of take over. And when the dog starts to take over, it's one thing if the dog is really a natural, authentic leader. But if the dog is not a natural, authentic leader, we're putting our dogs in the position of being out there in front, trying to sense and learn and know whether they're supposed to protect us or not protect us, whether it's an exciting event or a dangerous event. So it's very important for us humans to have really, really clear boundaries, because so many times, like, we'll say something and then we let the boundary get broken. We'll say, it's like you're walking your dog, right? It's like, okay, stop pulling, and you give them a correction. But then you keep walking, and you're like, okay, stop pulling, and you give them a correction. If you want the dog to stop pulling, have the clear boundary to stop. Wait. Let the dog make a different choice. Don't just give it a little interrupt. It's like the difference between me taking my foot and drawing a line in the sand and saying very clearly, don't cross that line. And all of my energy is there, and it's present, and it's behind it. Versus, like, when a mom or dad or family is out to a restaurant, and the kids are doing something, and mom's like, Jimmy, stop. Katie, cut it out. There's really no energy behind that of what mom's saying. She's saying these words, but that's not really a clear boundary. She knows her kids are going to cross it. So it's really, really important for the safety and the sanity and the balancedness of our dogs that we humans really understand what a clear boundary is, because we allow our boundaries to be violated all the time. And when we start actually not allowing that, our energy changes. We become much more potent, that what comes out of our mouth, we're not just saying it to express air, but we're saying it and we mean it.
Okay, so how do we get better at providing clear boundaries to our dogs?
That's a great question, because I'm like, how can the dogs help us become better, better with our boundaries? That's always the greatest cue. Well, boundaries are a function of consistency. So one of the things that we can do to start getting clearer boundaries, one of the things I always tell people, because I learned this a long time ago when I started communicating with animals, I started to realize that an animal's strongest form of communication is pictures. It's not words. It's not sound. It's actually pictures. So one of the things that we humans can start doing to ensure clearer boundaries is to start becoming aware of the pictures that we actually show our dogs. Now, most of us don't even recognize this because we don't realize we do it all the time. But what we do is, let's say you're walking and you want your dog to stop pulling. So you're walking and you're like, okay, no pull. But the picture that you're actually showing your dog is that they're pulling. And I want you guys to try this, like the next time you're out or the next time your dog is doing something that you don't want them to do, notice the picture that you are subconsciously sending out to your dog. Because every single one of us does it. We don't always realize, and it's not just that we do it with our dogs, we do it all day long. So I want you to recognize when you're asking your dog not to do something, I want you to recognize what's the actual picture that you showed your dog. Because most people, they're walking their dog and they don't want them to pull. What they will show a picture of is the dog pulling, and then their words say, don't pull. So it's a conflict of energy right there. Okay, pictures being energy and words being energy. So what happens is when you start to get really clear about what your boundary is and the fact that you don't want the dog to pull, you want the dog to actually walk with you, then you start changing the picture in your mind to your dog walking with you, and you're giving them a very, very clear message. This is what walking with me is like. Walking with me does not include pulling. Then all of a sudden, your picture's clear and your energy is clear, and your dog can actually understand you better. So that's one of the first things to start with to get your boundaries clear. The second thing, and those are like immediate pictures that you're showing your dog from your mind to their mind, what it looks like of what you actually want, not what you don't want, but what you want. Second thing to do for clear boundaries is really just take some time one day to really get a clear focus of what it is you want to experience with your dog. How do you want the relationship to be? I can hear somebody's got something going on in the background, so if you could press *6, that would be great.
Can you get her? I can't.
So when you start to envision the kind of clarity of the relationship that you want to have with your dog, and you also see yourself as that authentic leader that's able to help your dog move into that position, again, that starts to change the energy to a very, very clear boundary. And the dogs start to pick that up, and they start to listen on an internal level because you're really speaking to them actually on a deeper level in their language. The third thing to do is you've got to check in with yourself to see where you are actually allowing boundaries to be broken. And with that one, it kind of looks like say what you mean and mean what you say. If your dog is walking down the street with you and you do not want them to pull, then stop. If you stop and the dog can't go forward, the dog's going to actually start to think in their brain and kind of go, okay, this is different. I'm not sure what's changed yet, but they're going to actually start looking at you to see what it is that you're actually requesting of them, because they realize you've stopped all forward motion. So if you stopped all forward motion, you're really letting them know, like, if you pull, we're not walking forward. So that's another example of how you can start practicing clear boundaries. If you say no about something, it's no. It's not no, we'll sort of know, we'll kind of know, we'll check back with me in 5 minutes. If it's no, it's no. And what happens is when you establish that clear boundary, it's kind of like, setting up clear parameters for kids. You set them up because you know that a 9-month-old Great Dane puppy has very bounding energy, okay? It's going to keep going unless it comes up against a place where it needs to stop. And when it comes up against that boundary where it needs to stop, it's either going to fight it, it's going to try to run from it, or it's going to back off its energy. And if you can start just getting really consistent and really keeping the boundaries real clear with your dog, like no's are no's, yeses are yeses, and basically you are the authentic leader that has the last word without getting pissed, but being really clear and really consistent, your dog is actually going to really respect that, because that's training. Kind of the reason why I started the In-Sync method is because it is literally the way that dogs train other dogs. So if we can understand from the inside how to be clearer and watch the way dogs hold boundaries with other dogs, watch when you're at the park, watch when two dogs walk past each other on the street. See what it is to be very clear and very consistent in what you're saying. And I'm not talking like an aggressive dog and a fearful dog, because dogs like that have an imbalance, but I'm talking about like two balanced dogs that are able to just move past each other, or two balanced dogs that meet up at the park. Watch and just notice how they keep really clear boundaries with each other. And as they're clear with each other, then what happens is it's like, cool, we can go play. This is awesome. We both know what the rules are, so this is fabulous. And if I'm overstepping your bounds a little bit, you're going to tell me. And if you're overstepping my bounds a little bit, I'm going to tell you. And then what happens is everybody gets on the same page and kind of understands what the rules are. And it's really, really important for humans, more so than the dogs, to understand how is it that you get to be a calm, consistent leader? How is it that you get to develop calm, clear boundaries with your dog and keep them? Because your dog will respect them. They're not going to be insulted because you tell them no. But they are going to become a pain in the butt if you say no, but then you allow them to do it anyway. That means that your word does not mean anything. So if you guys are interested, I have put together a really, really great home study course that also includes my In-Sync method book. And really why I put the program together was to teach you about how dogs really think, and the 6 things that dogs actually want humans to know in order to be more authentic and better leaders to the dogs. So it's not necessarily about, how do you teach your dog to sit? How do you teach your dog to lay down? How do you teach your dog to stay? It's about who you need to be and how you need to be as a human to be able to be in a really clear, connected relationship with your dog, so that you're really kind of both speaking the same language. Because dog training isn't about applying something at a dog. It's understanding how do dogs get each other to do what they want them to do. And that's something that we humans, I think, have gotten away from a little bit. So if anybody is interested in, really learning the foundational principles of the best way to be an authentic leader to your dog, please feel free to go and visit www.walkinsync.com, and it is under the product drop-down, and there's a home study course. And it'll really help reinforce how you're building this relationship with your dog and how using clear, consistent boundaries will change not only your relationship with your dog, it's going to change any relationship that you have that's not working for you, be it a boss, be it with children, and it really shows you how to be an authentic leader in a calm and relaxed way just by being consistent and kind of saying what you mean and meaning what you say without worrying, are they going to like me? I think sometimes humans will tend to let the boundaries go with their dogs because on the one hand, they want to change the behavior, but on the other hand, they still want to be liked. And the difference with a clear boundary dog to dog is that it's not emotional with the dogs when they go for correction. It's actually about survival. And because we humans have become so comfortable, we go more for okay, are they going to like me? Am I going to be okay with them? Are they going to be okay with me? And that sets you up right away for failure because you're taking a being that understands something extraordinarily clearly without emotions, and then you're putting in emotions, and then it becomes kind of like this tug of war. So when you really embody the level of clear boundaries where you're not afraid to give your dog a very clear, that's it, that's done, and not worry about what they think and not worry about if they're going to like you or love you, establishing that kind of a relationship allows your dog to actually thrive without becoming obnoxious, or without it becoming a tug of war, a back and forth where both of you end up frustrated and you're not happy with the relationship because you're not getting what you need, the dog's not getting what it needs. You want to have a really amazing, clear relationship that's so easy. And it's really, really doable. And clear boundaries are really the first place to start. So just make sure that with your dog, you stay consistent. And clear boundaries are just simply about saying what you mean and meaning what you say. If it's no, then it's no. And you hold that energy till that dog kind of goes, okay, I can respect that. You said no. Because the dogs that say no, you say no, and the dog just sits there and stares at you, and then the person caves. And then they're just like, okay, you can have it. That's not a clear boundary. But if you really want to teach your dog clear boundaries and you have a toy or you have a bone or you have something that they really want, and you can tell them no and claim it as your own, or you can tell them to leave it, claim it as your own, and then you can get them to the point where they actually look away or they back off their energy, that's a clear boundary. So that your animal knows that when you say something, you're a respected leader that is taking good care of them, that doesn't get angry or fly off the handle. They can trust you and they can do what you're asking them for. So it really is a huge foundational piece to the training relationship because it's not just here you're just teaching sit or here you're just teaching stay. Clear boundaries cut through and are behind every single command and every single thing and the entire relationship and the foundation of you being with your dog. So it's a biggie because it's got such an overall large ramifications.
Okay, I think that gives us a really, really clear idea of what we need to do, so that's good. So I think that probably concludes our session for tonight. We'll open it up to questions as soon as we turn off the recording. Just want to say, please remember to visit Alicia's site, walkandsync.com, and, of course, Big Bark, which is at www.bigbarkonline.com. And stay tuned because we are going to have a fantastic new website very shortly. So if you want to go ahead and take it off record, we'll open up to questions.